not everyone aboard the Black Whale 1 is going to make it to the Dark Continent. And I'm not talking about casualties incurred along the journey, because there's certainly going to be a lot of that. I'm talking about the fact that the Black Whale isn't actually going to the Dark Continent. Let's talk about it. All right, before we get started today, I want to give a huge shout out to I Love Waffles, who inspired this video. Thank you so much for the support. And I too am Team Waffle. Now, all you Team Pancake people out there, don't get angry. I love pancakes too. But if you were sat down and forced to choose, you can only have one for the rest of your life, I'm going waffle. It's the objectively correct choice. There's more variety, there's more texture. Pancakes are great. Pancakes are great. Don't get me wrong, but I'm picking waffles. Y'all can argue with the wall. So to begin, we need to talk about why this expedition is happening in the first place, and it's largely because of this man, Beyond Netero. He has been plotting an expedition to the Dark Continent for decades. 30 plus years at the very least. And we know that in order to do that, it takes a vast amount of resources. His primary hurdle was waiting for his father to die, Isaac Netero, because Netero said, hey, you can't go back as long as I'm alive. So as soon as he passed away, things really got set into motion. And like I mentioned, you need a vast amount of resources to make an expedition like this possible. So Beyond facilitated that by pulling the strings of the Kakin Empire, again, over the course of decades. He basically manipulated King Nasubi into embarking on this journey. So why did he go through all of this trouble? Why does Beyond want to go there so bad? And really, this is somewhat of a mystery. We don't know his true intentions, but as far as it's presented thus far, the Dark Continent just represents the next great frontier, especially for people of immense strength, which from everything we know about him, clearly Beyond Netero is of the highest tier of this verse. So it may be that he's looking for a challenge in the same way his father was, and the Dark Continent represents a satisfying challenge to him, whereas it didn't for his father. Or maybe it's to get vast riches. You know, we really don't know, but he basically just really wants to go. But so how do you convince King Nasubi and the entire Kakin Empire to get on board for this, right? And it's pretty standard, simple geopolitical stuff, right? King Nasubi wants to go on this journey for the glory of his name and his empire, to conquer these unknown lands and bring back the riches to humanity, right? Really surface level stuff. However, underneath that, we also know that this trip just presented the prime opportunity for the next succession ritual, but that's kind of unrelated to like the actual idea of getting to the Dark Continent, because that will presumably all take place on the journey itself. And so I think, you know, beyond that, it is just for the glory of the Empire. Next, the Zodiacs got looped into all of this because of Isaac Netero. Even though he has passed away, he had these tapes set up basically to reveal information to them that, one, he had a son, and two, that son was probably going to go to the Dark Continent. So he wanted the Zodiacs to basically get there first. And so now them dealing with the reveal of Isaac Netero having a son and the reveal of the Kakin Empire going to this very dangerous place that is against the law as far as the world government is concerned, they're basically trying to play catch up and ultimately come to the decision of, okay, we're going to place Beyond under our arrest and supervise this trip to the Dark Continent. And so hopefully we can get there first, make sure things are going to be chill and keep everything, you know, under control, basically. So that's how they get looped into it. And this is where the expedition takes a curve, because like I mentioned, the Black Whale isn't actually going to the Dark Continent. And that's because of the Zodiacs, because the Dark Continent is supremely dangerous, right? So we can't have 200,000 civilians pulling up on it because they are all going to die. So the solution the Zodiacs come up with is to basically trick the Kakin Empire into going to a dummy Dark Continent. As you can see on this map above, everything within this dotted circle is the human world as we know it. And outside of it is all of the uncharted territory that will ultimately lead to the Dark Continent. But before you reach the Dark Continent, there are tons of islands and landmasses on the way. So they plan on just landing at one and telling everyone, hey, we made it to the Dark Continent. So this uncharted new continent is the real destination of the Black Whale, and then and only then will a second expedition embark that will go to the true Dark Continent. And here you can see the Zodiacs discussing this, saying that they'll be transferring to Morel's ship and then they'll keep going. So obviously things could go haywire before we ever reach this point, but the plan as it stands would be to like take Beyond, who would still presumably be a prisoner, and take the Zodiacs and probably a very small group of people, and then continue to the actual Dark Continent. So King Nasubi and the princes and the near 200,000 denizens of the Kakian Empire will presumably never make it to the Dark Continent. So I don't think there's much worth in speculating on what might happen to them when they get there. Now we still got some more parties to talk about here, starting with Jean and Pariston, who are technically right now part of Beyond Netero's entourage, but each of them, I believe, have their own reasons for wanting to go to the Dark Continent. Jean, we know that from what he told Gon, it basically just represents the next exciting adventure to him. The reasons he wants to go are probably similar to Beyond Netero, at least, what we understand of them right now, as somebody powerful that, just needs his next exciting thing to conquer. The Dark Continent represents that, right? So he recognized this Beyond expedition was a great opportunity for him to tag along and get what he wants as well. But at the same time, he's also there to keep Pariston in check. Now, we know that Pariston has been working with Beyond Netero for a long time, so his interests are aligned with Netero's as well, but I do believe that Pariston has his own interests truly at heart here, and why he wants to go to the Dark Continent is probably a very similar reason at the end of the day, but if you saw my recent Pariston is Sheila video, then it could also speak to the fact that the stories from Dino Hunter, the book that Sheila was obsessed with, likely allude to the Dark Continent, so that could be a reason that he really wants to go. In any case, Jean, Pariston, all of the members of Beyond's advanced team, and all of the hunters that Beyond hired to come on the Black Whale as well, all of them are presumably going to go to the real Dark Continent. Now, the exact means of how that happens, we don't know, but we know that Beyond has a plan. Next, speaking of freelance hunters that were hired to come on this journey, in addition to Beyond's people, we also have Kurapika's people. So why is Kurapika here? Well, he was looped into this by the Zodiacs. He is the new Rat Zodiac. He took Pariston's place. So he's helping with their general mission. But the real reason he's here is to deal with fourth Prince Saraidnik of the Kakian Empire. Because Saraidnik is the one that has all of the rest of the Kurta clan eyes that Kurapika has not collected yet. So that's his true mission here. Which means, as far as the real Dark Continent is concerned, we don't know if Kurapika has any real motivation to actually go there. So assuming that the Black Whale arrives to the fake Dark Continent and he's had a chance to confront or deal with Saraidnik, then I don't know if Kurapika would join the second expedition to the true Dark Continent. I think something else would need to happen to give him a reason to do that. And yeah, that's entirely possible, right? There are a bunch of theories that the Kurta clan may have originated from the Dark Continent. So like maybe something from that angle could come into play and he could be like, yeah, I'm coming with you. Or maybe Saraidnik, for whatever reason, hasn't been dealt with, and for whatever reason, he's going to the Dark Continent, which would force Kurapika to need to go as well, right? But as it stands right now, Kurapika and all of the friends he brought along are just here to deal with the Saraidnik thing and help him. So if that gets solved by the time we get to the fake continent, I don't know if they would all go. But something I do want to point out that I Love Waffles pointed out is that Melody's personal mission to find this Sonata of Darkness that, transformed her into what she looks like now, that certainly sounds like something that could have originated in the Dark Continent. So if she discovers something to that effect, then she may wish to continue on to the Dark Continent. And Kurapika, let's just say he has solved everything else, may be willing to go around with her in order to help her. So there are a number of things that could happen that could push some, if not all of these people there as well. I mean, even Kurapika's, role as a Zodiac member may require him to go along with the rest of them to the real Dark Continent. So point is, there's a lot of options here, but as it stands right now, most of these people don't have a real reason to go. And then I think the only other group aboard the Black Whale we haven't addressed yet would be the Phantom Troupe and Hisoka. We know that originally Chrollo wanted to come on this expedition even before the Hisoka drama because he wanted to steal some stuff from the Kakian Empire. He realized that there's going to be a lot of worthwhile stuff on this ship and a lot of weak people to take advantage of, right? So that's why he originally wanted to do it. But obviously things got way more serious once the Hisoka drama started. And so now he's also trying to deal with Hisoka. And Hisoka himself came on this trip because it represented a playing ground for him, right? He has a bunch of juicy opponents all in one place, so that's why he wanted to come. Now, as far as whether any of these people would go to the Dark Continent, I think they certainly would, but as of right now, we don't know why they would. Unfortunately, we just don't know what we don't know, right? And there are so many things we don't know because a wrench could get thrown into everything I just said, right? It might be the plan to stop at the fake dark continent, but what if that just never even happens? Because depending on what happens with the succession war and when Beyond Netero really puts his true plan into action, like things could dramatically change, right? And this is just one pure hypothetical. What if Saraidnik is Beyond Netero's son, and so he too wants to go to the Dark Continent, and let's say he wins the Succession War and pushes the entire Khakeen Empire to the true Dark Continent along with his father. That would then obviously push Kurapika and everyone else there as well. So, like, really anything could happen, but for my best guess of like whose perspectives we're going to follow when we get there, I think if Kurapika is still there, then obviously him because he's already an established like main character. But Tagashi is no stranger to jumping around to a million perspectives as we've seen in the Succession War. So personally, I think it would be cool to spend time with Kurapika, but also maybe to spend time with Jean. I think that would be awesome. He's a really interesting character to me that we don't know much about, and he certainly will be a major force in the Dark Continent, especially if Kurapika isn't there, right? So I think he'd be a really cool POV character. I don't know if I really see Hisoka and the Phantom Troop going the whole way, unless everyone is forced to go the whole way, obviously. Just because, like, Hisoka mentioned he's not interested in non-humans, which there could be humanoids on the Dark Continent. I think there are going to be humanoids on the Dark Continent, but it does feel like the most of the challenge of the Dark Continent is more in like the nature and the creatures. So I just don't know if that type of stuff would interest Hisoka, and I don't know if that type of stuff interests Crollo either, except in terms of potential treasures and like monetary value that could be held there. But also, I think the Hisoka and Phantom Troop stuff will most likely come to a head before the Dark Continent is ever reached. Anyways, we're getting into Yappington territory here. But ultimately, at the end of the day, there are just still so many different variables here. I think it's impossible to say who's actually going to make it there and who's not, which then makes it hard to say what we're actually going to do when we get there. But I do think Beyond, Jean, and Pariston are going to be major players once we do get there. And maybe Leorio, right? I mean, our boy's got to get some screen time eventually. He's on this journey as well, but I could see his arc, if we want to call it that, would come during the expedition, but maybe he has something that leads him to the Dark Continent. It's really anyone's guess, but I would love to hear y'all's thoughts. And I Love Waffles, again, thank you for the idea for this video and the support. I really appreciate it, and thank you guys for watching.